Hey, good morning. It is 9:01. I'm only 1 minute late. Sorry, I've been obviously a little delayed this morning because I'm still wet-haired and everything. But no, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Friday. It is a day later than I normally do this, but I was busy running my daughter to appointments yesterday, and I had work in the morning, which was actually, it ended up being a really fun day, but it was just busy. So I wanted to make sure I connected with you guys here today and to talk to you a little bit about what my newsletter was about yesterday. So for those of you who don't subscribe to my newsletter, on Mondays I send out usually a health-related newsletter. Ooh, too many windows in my kitchen. A health-related newsletter that talks about adult health coaching topics, anywhere from blood sugar to, this week I talked about seasonal affective disorder and how, you know, the loss of sunlight and vitamin D can really affect our mood and how we can deal with that. So that was on my Monday newsletter, but yesterday, my Thursday newsletter was really about food, and what we eat and how the prevalence of anxiety and depression and all of those things and attention deficit can really be directly correlated back to what we put inside our bodies. So before I get too far into this, if you don't know me and you are just popping in here randomly, my name is Megan Zavito. I am a health coach, but I primarily work with teenagers, and I work with them a lot on kind of a holistic point of view, teenagers and the adults in their lives, really to talk about communication, self-confidence, self-esteem, and their health, and how all of those things go together to help them to be able to put out their very best and how they can communicate with other people, and hopefully creating a society that has some really, really awesome adults, because I love teenagers. I teach history at a school here. I teach high school history and government, and I've got 3 teenagers and 1 11-year-old, so I have plenty of teenagers of my own. Anyway, so yesterday's newsletter was really about the foods that we eat and how we have this whole idea of actually a Western diet, which was so nicely named after the foods that, I mean, specifically if we want to go Western, that's compliments of the United States and our tendency to be fast and 100 miles an hour when we eat, and this kind of shift from eating whole foods or foods that we actually have to prepare to packaged or processed foods, and how much that the chemicals and the things we have to put in those foods to preserve them so that we can just grab them off the shelf when we want them, how much those foods have had the nutrition taken out of them or substituted back with other kinds of vitamins, and how much detriment they cause to our mental health, and what we think, well, they're safe. They wouldn't sell them to them if they're safe. Well, safe is relevant to your body chemistry, right? So if you're sensitive to those chemicals, they can affect you in a lot of different ways. And as they build up in your system over time, or as your body, starts to adapt to deal with those chemicals, they really go from safe to tolerable. And as a teacher, I know, especially in the school that I teach in, but also with my own kids, I do see a huge prevalence of kids with, obviously we have attention issues, ADD or ADHD is huge. And, we're slapping those labels on kids as little as, I don't think they can legally put that label on a kid that's in preschool, but we're like, oh, that one's got ADD. Maybe they're just a preschooler, right? Or I know even my son, when he was in kindergarten, it was, oh, he's got ADD. The kid can focus for hours. He reads nonstop. He does all this. He's a doer. And I talked before about how, when I've coded my kids, and now that I know that he's a knowledge action kid, well, sometimes us action people are actually labeled ADD when actually our personality says do. And that's just the way we're wired. So that was one portion of it, but also a portion of it and what we're missing in terms of foods. When we fill our bodies with convenience foods, or we fill ourselves with non-nutritive foods, we're actually taking down a lot of the nutrients that we need to be able to to be able to focus, or the foods that raise the serotonin naturally in in our brains so that we can function at our best. And I'm going to pull up this graphic really quickly so I can read to you what I actually did. So because I will forget, but so some of the foods that we're talking about, and one of the things I really want to talk about that when I took we've been to the allergist and things like that, it's that time of year where we've got colds and things, but we've been talking a lot. I talked with my allergist about probiotics, and I said, hey, can they help allergies at all? And they said probiotics everyone should be taking a good probiotic. And so if you don't know what a probiotic is basically good bacteria. All right. It's the good little biological things that live in your stomach that naturally get killed off from antibiotics. Because if you take an antibiotic for strep or sinus infection or anything else, or if you eat meat that has been treated with antibiotics so that the animals don't get sick, you are unintentionally killing the good bacteria in your gut. And I've talked in the past about how your gut is it is the tightest connection to your brain. There's this, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes from your gut to your brain, and it transmits mood. It transmits that how some people pass out or puke when they see blood? Vagus, okay? That is that vagus nerve, and how it is affected by that, and how that good bacteria in your gut really regulates what's going on inside of you so that you can think clearly, and so that you're not anxious, so you're not depressed, so you're not exhausted or unable to focus. And how this probiotic is really, really a great beginning. Plus, it fights colds and allergies and sinus infections, because when you have that good bacteria, it helps your body fight off all the other junk without having to take more antibiotics. Okay, so especially if you've had, or your child has had, strep or some sort of infection that required an antibiotic, give them fermented foods and probiotics. Okay, pickles, seriously, let them eat a jar of pickles. Let them drink the pickle juice. I mean, my youngest daughter, she loves that stuff, and she will drink pickle juice. So yogurt is a good one, but make sure you're not getting the sugary, yucky. I know that Yoplait whips are delicious. Eat good yogurt. I like that Fage 2%. I know it's really not sweet, and that's kind of why I buy it, because I don't particularly like it. I use it in place of sour cream and everything. We don't ever buy sour cream. I buy that Fage 2% or the whole, like the 4% yogurt, and we use it as sour cream on everything. I will put it in a bowl, and I will put honey and cinnamon and chia seeds on top and make it just a little bit sweet for me. But that's a great fermented food that you can eat that will give you some probiotics. You can also buy really good probiotic supplements. Just check them out. Maybe go to GNC and ask, or I am not a vitamin guru. I'm really, really not. I'd rather just eat food and feel good than have to take a bunch of supplements. But if you're into supplements, probiotic is the one supplement other than vitamin D that I think that from what I'm understanding from all of the things that I've learned and from the doctors that I've talked with, yes, those are the two you need. Okay, vitamin D, which is actually not a vitamin at all. It's actually a hormone. And probiotics, all right? Other foods that we can talk about in terms of helping yourself or your teenager with anxiety, depression, attention deficit issues are B vitamins, anything that's got B vitamins in it. Beans are great for this. Black beans, make black bean soup, okay? Eat chili beans, those kinds of beans. Beans, iron, anything with iron, and we're looking at good quality. I would avoid probably really red meats often, but occasionally red meat obviously is fine. Magnesium. Magnesium is a big one for focus. It's also really good for your nervous system in terms of making your nerves function better. I have this thing where my muscles twitch all the time, but when I eat enough magnesium, it actually goes away. So that's if you get muscle cramps, if your kid is an athlete and they're always getting Charlie horses, magnesium and potassium, of course, but magnesium for sure. Omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s come from salmon, tuna, those oily fishes that sometimes are a little more potent that we don't necessarily like. Try some salmon recipes, okay? I know that sometimes when we say fish in Indiana, we mean bluegill. That's not really what I mean at all, not at all. Anchovies, but clams, You can do steamed clams. You can make clams with pasta are really good. Wild salmon, tuna, things like that. Other things that we need to look at could be like thiamine, selenium, and zinc. We can look at these things again. I've talked about beans. Fresh fruits are fantastic for anxiety and depression because they've got a lot of B vitamins, again, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin C. Vitamin C is really important to keep all of your cells regenerating properly. So I would not recommend juice. I'm not a juicer. I don't even buy this stuff. If I do, it's like buying pop, okay, you guys? Soda, Coke, whatever you call it. I'm not a big juice proponent. I know that some people are, and usually they're making like spinach juice, which I also don't want to drink. I'm big on eating whole foods, okay? So instead of buying orange juice, eat an orange. Instead of buying apple juice, eat an apple. You're getting fiber. You're getting all of the other things. You're going to get full faster and stay full longer, and there's not as much sugar in it. So fresh fruits. This is a huge one for me, okay? Ginger and turmeric. So those don't have to come in the little containers that you shake out. You can actually buy it's called a hand of ginger or a hand of turmeric because they look like these funky little roots with fingers all over them. I keep some in my freezer and then I actually grate them off and put them into recipes, or I can grate them off and I can make tea out of them. But ginger and turmeric are great. Again, for all of this stuff with your gut-brain connection, okay? Leafy greens. Leafy greens are not iceberg lettuce, all right? Iceberg lettuce is good for salad. If you want to mix some in, that's great. I'm talking about like spinach. I'm talking about like a darker romaine. I'm talking about like Swiss chard. I'm talking about actually broccoli and cauliflower. Leafy greens are those heavier greens. And yeah, it's totally fine to eat iceberg lettuce, but maybe mix some of those other in with those because your body really depends on leafy greens. I try and buy more romaine or red romaine because my kids kind of are yucky on they want crunchy lettuce. You know what I mean? And some of those leafier greens are the softer lettuces, except kale, which is super crunchy. And sometimes it's like a cuss word to people and they're like, I'm not eating kale. My grandma, you don't even tell her you're going to eat kale because she thinks you should just grow it in your landscaping and don't ever eat it. Nuts and seeds, all right? Nuts and seeds are huge. It's always fun at Halloween. We always do pumpkin seeds, but I keep pumpkin seeds in my cabinet. I put them in my oatmeal. Chia seeds are great. Flax seed is great. Pistachios, almonds, and walnuts. Walnuts look like a brain, and they are really, really good for your brain. I don't think that was a joke. I think that God made walnuts to remind you to eat them for your brain, okay? Walnuts are fantastic. Remember that the serving size of a walnut is actually just a quarter of a cup. So that's just like a little bit in your hand. It's really easy to open a can of nuts and then you look down and you're like, oh crap, I ate the whole can because they're good. But watch your portion size with nuts. But they're great for your brain, great to keep you full. But they also are really full of B vitamins, omega-3s, and all of those things that balance that vagus nerve that will keep you, that'll fight anxiety, depression, ADD, and all of those mental health issues that we have. Olive oil. Take the canola oil and just like chuck it away somewhere because we have olive oil and coconut oil and you don't really need that stuff, okay? Olive oil is fantastic. You can put it on your salad, put olive oil, do a little bit of lemon juice, do some salt and pepper, salad dressing, okay? We use it for everything at my house. Olive oil, grapeseed oil is also really fantastic. Hemp seed oil is good. It has a little bit of a different flavor that you might have to adjust to, but I would really recommend any of those. And of course, whole grains, and talking about whole grains in terms of whole grains doesn't just mean if you read the package, like the bread loaf bag, and it says made with whole grain. I'm talking like in the first two ingredients. If it says enriched flour, no, back up, okay? So whole grains are, yes, rice is a grain. Okay, we can agree on that. But there's a difference between long grain white rice, and minute rice. Minute rice, I actually posted an article in the Ditch the Sugar group the other day about white rice is actually, they're finding, apparently, and I didn't know this, apparently that Asians who really struggle with diabetes, they're finding that white rice actually has a higher impact than on straight sugar. So if you are if you're really working on blood sugar, skip the white rice, either go long grain rice. Oh my God, I can't talk. Long grain rice, brown rice, quinoa, all of those different grains that you can eat, and make sure that it's the kind that takes longer to cook. Yes, minute rice is super convenient. It's also just like ramen noodles, okay? Tastes good. That's all. All right, and that's just a really quick snippet of why I think it's really important that we look at what we're eating and how that's affecting our mood. And I would encourage you, if your kid is struggling or if you are struggling with anxiety, you guys, I wish I could sit here and tell you the whole story of my whole anxiety journey. Let's just say that when I was in the 4th grade, my teacher had this stack of papers and like a report card and stuff. And it was my stuff. It was like my work, but there was a little sticky note on it. And I remember this fell out. So when I was in elementary school, I had a lot of anxiety from kindergarten, like until last week, or not last week. Okay. But, anxiety has become a quick trip and not a destination for me, but let's just say it was my destination for, most of elementary school, definitely all of middle school, high school, and college. It was rough, and it was really, really, when you're anxious for that long, and it leads to a feeling of not wanting to leave your house because you're anxious, or your dorm room or anything like that, and it gets really, really dark really fast. So when I look at my students, or I see where my kids are a little anxious or something, that really hits for me, because I know that feeling and I know how awful it is, and I know that I have days where it will really just sneak back on me. Like I'll be doing something and all of a sudden I'm like, that feeling where you can't get a good breath, and I'm anxious, or I get that thought process in my head. I'm super thankful that, if nothing else, I learned how to coach people through this, because I had the skills. I did anxiety counseling through college. I also drank Diet Coke and ate minute rice on the daily in college. It wasn't helping. I took antidepressants that made my depression worse. Good God, I like drank it away in college. The train, the process, all of this, it's dark. It is so dark and so scary. So one of the things I want to talk to you guys about in this whole group coaching thing that I've got starting in January is it's really made for parents and teenagers together, but most of it is going to be focused on the teenagers. Okay, so yes, moms, dads, teachers, grandparents, whoever, aunts, uncles, whoever is doing this with the teenager in their life, you are in this. But this group is really created to foster communication and self-esteem and self-awareness and health for kids ages 13 to 18. And that is where I'm focusing. Yes, I know that's a huge age span. And that's why if I have 13 to 15-year-old, if I have too many littler ones and a few older ones, I'm going to split groups, because I don't think a 13 and an 18-year-old can relate. I have a 13-year-old and I have a 19-year-old. They're like this. I mean, they're very much alike and very, very different, and there's no way I could coach them on the same things, okay? But what we're gonna do is we're gonna have somewhere between 4 and 8 spots per group, okay? I have to have 4 people in each group to start the group, but normally my one-on-one rates are $697, so $697 for 12 one-on-one sessions. The group coaching is gonna be different. It's gonna be $250 for 8 group sessions. So it's a huge discount in price because there's more people at once. It's not as one-to-one, like that kind of digging in. And so that's a little bit different, but it's still incredibly valuable, deep information. And it's in a cohort situation, so you get to kind of make friends with other people. So if this is something you're interested in, you're going to want to jump on right away, because if you register by December 20th, then you get a free gift, which is yay. Everybody likes free gifts. But I want to make sure you get a spot. So if this is something that sounds like your teenager will benefit, and I'm going to tell you what it's about here as we go on, definitely let me know right away, okay? So coaching is going to take place via Zoom. Zoom is free for you. Each session is going to last about an hour, depending on how many people are in the session. It might go an hour and 15 or so, but each session is going to be recorded too. So I'm going to record them. So let's say that you have a swim meet, or you've got too much homework one night, or you're sick or something like that. That's okay, because you can come back later and catch up on that session, but you can also, if you want to review it, you can go back and review it over and over and over, because it'll be there. All right. One of the things I would say is, don't say, oh, but I'll just watch it later, because I really think that attendance and attention, just like my classroom, this is how I grade, they are really vital to your success, and conversations are important. So all of this stuff that I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a private drive. It'll be a Google Drive that you'll have shared access to, so that you, as a parent, you will have the same information that your son or daughter will have. No secrets. I'm all about transparency. I think as the parent, you need to know, and you should know. I am one of those parents that will read the note that I find on the floor in my kid's room. And if I don't think they should have it, I'll call them out on it as soon as they get home from school. I don't care what anybody says about your kid's privacy. They deserve privacy in some areas of their life, but there are other areas when it comes to their mental health where they do not need this. They need you to step in and call me out. Maybe this is a different opinion in you. That's totally fine. But I want you to know, for the purpose of transparency, anything I talk about with them, you will have access to. Any materials I give them, you will have access to. Okay? There's no secret room here. Well, there is, but you get in on it. How's that? The group coaching experience is really going to be tailored and individualized for each kid. So before the process starts, I will have a one-on-one conversation with you and your child together to find out what it is that they want. Because, there might have one kid that's like, I'm too shy and I have to do presentations at school and I want to know how to be more confident. Great. We're going to talk about that. I might have another kid that says, you know what? I get sad and then I go eat chips in the middle of the night. We're going to talk about that too. Or there might be another kid that just says, I don't feel like I'm good at anything. That's okay. We're going to figure that out too. And all of those things are really going to mix together. So I'm super excited to be able to do this for your teenager, and to be able to teach you as the parent how to communicate with them when they start to feel those ways. How can you get them to talk? Because I know that a lot of times we'll get how are things? Fine. Really, they don't seem very fine. I said it's fine. This is a conversation, right? We need to be able to fix the fine, because fine doesn't necessarily always mean fine. Anyway, so much of this is going to be specific to each person that it's really going to take some stretching on your teenager's part. Open and honest communication is going to be important. We're going to have a really long talk during the first session about what group coaching is and how we respect each other. And it will go into, these people who you're in this group with, they trust you and you're going to trust them, and we're going to share with each other, and whatever is said in that group doesn't leave the group. Okay? So these coaching sessions are not going to be available to anyone outside of our group. So part of this growth is change and stretching, and that can be really uncomfortable, and I understand that. But my job is to make this happen as your coach, is to really stretch you and hold each kid and each parent to their highest self, and really to cheer for you. So yeah, I'm going to maybe push you a little. And that's okay. We can be pushed and pulled and stretched, okay? But as parents or guardians, your participation is really welcome, but also expected. So since you're the primary influence in their life, they need to be aware, you need to know what they want, first of all. And we need to make sure that it's what they want as opposed to what you want them to want. And that is hard, because I want my kids to do whatever. But if that's not what they want, if that's not their thing, we have to step back as parents, and we'll be like, oh my God, but you're so my brother, this is a good example. My brother had a really, really good arm. Okay. So he could throw, and he did not want to play football at all. Well, he couldn't, because he had a head injury at one point, but he was like, no. But I'm telling you, he could throw. He didn't really play football. He did play tennis though. Anyways, I will really encourage you, some assignments that I'm going to give your teenager are also going to apply to you, where I want you to have meaningful conversations with them about what we're coaching with outside of the coaching sessions and what they're feeling and how they're doing with it. So I'm going to be encouraging them to share with you what they talked about. So if you're not sitting right next to them, and actually I don't know that you want to sit right next to them because I want them to feel open without you there. Okay, so here's how it's structured. You ready? This is the structure. First, before coaching, your teenager is going to have a breakthrough session. This is a one-on-one session. It's going to be partly for you, and then you're going to step back and we're going to have a session with just the rest of the time is going to be just with your teenager. And we're going to talk about, it's going to be about 45 minutes, and we're going to start to uncover the goals that they have for themselves or what they want. Like, why are we doing this coaching thing? Let's talk about this. Why are you here? And if they say, my mom's making me, I'm going to say, are you sure this is what you want? Because you can't make somebody want to be coached, okay? It's like making an alcoholic go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It doesn't work. You have to want something. All right. And if your teenager's just doing it because you told them to, that's not going to work. Okay. You can encourage them and maybe they're receptive to it and that we can work with. But if they're like, I do not want to do this, my mom is making me, that's not a situation that's good for them. It's not good for you. There's no reason for you to waste your money on that. And there's no reason, until they're ready. And if they change their mind and they're ready someday, great. But that's part of what that breakthrough session is for. And that's really what part of every breakthrough session is for when we talk about what do you want. Well, if I'm not a good fit for them, then I'm going to tell you, like, no, I don't think this is going to work. Save your money, save your time, okay? I'm not here to coach everybody on the planet by any means. So I'll be real upfront and honest with you and with your teenager, okay? So that's the pre-coaching breakthrough session. 45 minutes, just me and them, none of the other kids. The first session that we're going to do during teen coaching is going to be really about discovering your language. This is where we're going to bring out those little bank cards, and I'm hoping that we will, during the pre-coaching, that we'll be able to, get you and your child coded. It only takes about 90 seconds. If you haven't done that, there's links floating around on this Facebook page somewhere. Crack your code and find out what language you speak, and then crack your kids' code. And that is step one. But we're going to dig into that in the first session and talk about what your language is and what it means to be the person that you are. So we'll look at the kids in the group and we'll say, okay, this person is an action kid. This person is a nurturer. And we'll decide, so if we're going to talk to each other, or we're going to say, well, what's your mom? So I'm an action, my mom's a blueprint. I wish I would have known that as a teenager because she is very structured and ordered, and I am very much, let's do this and let's get it done. And I don't want to go back and correct it 45 times. I'm going to do it right the first time, be done. I don't need to look at it again. I wish I would have known that as a teenager because that would have really helped me connect with my mom better as a teenager. My mom and I are awesome now, but we fought a lot when I was a teenager. And I know that's normal for teenagers, but I really feel that we can make this better. So that's session one. Session two is going to be all about visualizing what your passion is. Okay? What do you want? How can we make this picture real for you? And how can we help you see yourself in this? So we're going to dig into your kid and every other kid's, what is your passion? Because everybody has one. And we're going to dig that out of them, okay? And figure out what are they really, really into? And I have some cool tools that we're going to use for that. The third session is going to be about self-regulation. Self-regulation is, it's an interesting topic for teenagers because in terms of brain development, everybody has a frontal lobe, okay? And we see this a lot with boys. And I'm not picking on boys because I adore them. Like, it's easier for me really to work with boys a lot of times. But boys, frontal lobe development is a little bit slower than girls, like to the tune of 5 to 10 years sometimes. So girls usually are 21 to 23 before they have full frontal lobe development. Boys are like 28 to 30. Sorry, ladies, but your husband will be an adult. If he's young, he will kick in, but it might take a little bit. But self-regulation and really figuring out, you don't have to say yes and you don't have to say no. So talking about, what do you want? What do you not want? What doesn't fit into that passion that you have? And it's okay to say no. and you're not being mean, and how to stand up for yourself, how to say yes to yourself, but also how to say no for yourself. So that'll be our third session, okay? Fourth session is gonna be about self-sabotage, because this is where we get to the point where we're like, well, I was doing really good, but then I screwed up, so I just thought it wasn't worth it. Really? Wasn't worth it? Because if that was your passion and that's what you wanted and you were saying yes and no, what happened? And this goes back to a lot of things, and we'll talk about that a lot in session 4. Session 5 is going to be about self-love and self-esteem. Self-love does not mean thinking you are better than everyone else. Okay? It means recognizing that you have been given all of these incredible gifts, and how no matter what, those are yours, and how you can use them and how you can take care of yourself and what you need to make sure those gifts are able to come out. That's session 5. Session 6 is all about healthy body, healthy mind. We're gonna dig into foods. We're gonna dig into exercise. We're gonna dig into water, sleep. All of those things are gonna happen in session 6. Session 7 is about stress. How do we handle stress? There are positive ways to handle stress and negative ways to handle stress. When you don't have a way to say yes or no, when you don't love yourself enough, stress can sneak up on you. So we're going to talk about stress management for teenagers. And then session 8 is going to talk about their new normal, because I think in that last session, it's really important to look at how far they've come and how much success they've made, and what direction they're heading. And then post-coaching, so once we've done the pre-coaching, all 8 weeks, then we'll have a final session, and the final session is going to go back and be another one-on-one session for parents and teenagers together. And we're going to discuss what questions parents have, and the biggest aha moments that you've had in coaching. Like, what do you want to see grow more? What are you happy to see gone? Or what changes have you noticed? Or what still needs to change? And we'll talk about how it all wound up. And I'm really excited because you're going to see some huge differences in the way that you work with your teenager, but also in the way that your teenager works with you. And I think it will roll out into their behaviors and their school and everything else. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about in terms of food, but also what this group coaching experience is. So registration for this group is open. Like I said, it's $250. It's going to start on January 8th. It's 8 weeks. It's Wednesdays at 5:30 in the evening. You can actually, if you have data, your kid can do it on the cell phone while you drive them to practice. They can do it at home. They can do it at the library or whatever. So it's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be a fraction of the price of individual coaching, and not quite as long, 8 weeks instead of 12, but I guess 10 if you talk about the pre and the post coaching. And I'm super excited to be able to offer this and to be able to watch teenagers be as awesome as I know they are. So I really want to thank you guys for tuning in today. And I'm asking you to please, as always, share this with other people who you think would benefit. And if you are an adult thinking, I want group coaching, cool, because I have an adult group that's going to start. It'll be on Sunday afternoons. That registration is also open. I just haven't talked as much about it. But yes, there will be an adult program as well. It won't be the exact same format. It will deal more with health coaching and a little less with the other stuff, but it's all incorporated. So we'll touch on those things, but spend a little bit more time on healthy behaviors in adults, healthy food, sleep, water, things like that, and digging into other things with you too. So thank you. I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to message me. You can always call me or text me. My phone number, you ready? 260-222-8323. Hit me with a text message or give me a call and ask questions. Or of course you can ask on Facebook. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I will talk to you all later on. Bye-bye.